Hey, what's up, guys? It's Art Book Addiction here, and we're here with a new artist journey video. So today, we're going to be talking about discipline. So discipline and how it can help your artwork, right? How important is it to an artist on his artist journey, right? I would say very, very important, right? Discipline is what's going to keep the art flowing, right? It's going to keep you steady when there are times when you don't want to create, right? And it's going to keep you growing at a pace that you can measure, right? So discipline will allow for so much in your career as an artist, and it's one of the vital tools that you will be using on your artist journey. And discipline is just important in general, just for life, right? So that's what we'll be talking about today, guys. But before we start the video, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my prints and my Patreon if you want to support the channel. And with that, now let's get into this. So, what exactly is discipline, and how do I implement it into my life and my art, right? So basically, discipline, I would think on a very basic level, is setting a task and then doing that task, right? Very simple, very straightforward, right? Like, you set yourself like, hey, I want to work out at this time, right? At this set schedule, right? And committing to that thing, all right, committing to that workout, that's basically discipline, right? So if you apply that to artwork, right, what does that mean, right? It basically means, hey, from this time to this time, I'm gonna be working on my artwork, right? And I'm gonna do it for these amount of days or whatever, and I'm gonna commit to that, and I'm gonna keep doing that, right? Again and again and again and again, right? And you commit yourself to doing it, right? And so, like, let's talk about it on a broader scale, right? So, like, that's basically what discipline is when it comes to artwork, right? But how does that apply more to, like, daily life, right? Well, if you guys know, if you guys have been around for a while, right, you'll know that you have your daily schedule, right? You do this, you do that, right? When you're in high school, your daily schedule is kind of already set for you, right? For the 8 hours that you're doing stuff, right? And then you go from 7, right, to 3 o'clock. You do your thing, right? And then each class is at its set time, right? So it's a natural way of, like, kind of like scheduling yourself, right? And that's pretty easy, you know what I mean? For a time schedule like that, your most of your day is already taken up, right? So there's not really much need for, I mean, there is need for discipline, right? And, like, the willingness to study and stuff like that. But, like, high school is a very, like, micro scale of what's going on, right? So I want to talk about when you're at the college level, right? And when you're going beyond that, right? When you're given a lot of free time, it kind of shows your level of discipline, right? Because it requires you to have self-sovereignty, right? And basically choose what you're going to do for what amount of time and when, right? Those of you who are on the artist journey will know, like, that at a certain point, right, especially like in art school, discipline will become extremely required, okay? Because there's not enough time in the day for you to mess around and do your work, right? And get your work to a good level, because art takes a lot of time, right? So that's why discipline is so important to an artist, right? Because there are projects that could potentially take months and months of time, right? And, like, you have a deadline, right? In a lot of cases, especially during school, you have a deadline, right? And so you need to get to a certain level of finish in a certain amount of time, right? And art is a very, very, like, you can't really know exactly how long it's going to take. Okay, it might take longer than what you think, right? Usually, whatever time you think you accomplish something, you need to double it, right? And that will be the real time that it's going to take, right? Like you say, like, hey, I think I could finish this painting in 6 hours, right? In reality, I would argue that it would take actually 12 hours, right? So how do you discipline yourself in these cases, right? Obviously, you want to be working at a set schedule every day so that you know how much work you could put in, right? And knowing that amount of time is very, very important, right? Because within that span of time, sorry about that, you can improve yourself, right? You can improve your speed, right? Your accuracy, right? And like basically just how well spent is that hour, right? Or like, let's say like you work like you can only do artwork for about like 3 hours. Sorry, I have allergies right now. You could only do it for like 3 hours, right? Making that 3 hours really meaningful only happens after you've done it repeatedly for sessions and sessions and sessions again and again and again and again and again, right? And that's where comes the discipline, right? The willingness to work earlier, right? Knowing the set of time, right? For the amount of time that a work is going to require, right? Never not trying to not procrastinate, right? This is especially important because, like I said, like in most art schools, they're gonna grind you out, right? They're gonna show you that you're not joking around, right? And the workload will be much more significant than than in most colleges. You know what I mean, right? And then you have to deal with like 6-hour classes and stuff like that, right? You have to deal with like studios and it's very exhausting, right? So that's where things like discipline can really, really help, right? It's not just a like a strict force gripping you. In fact, it's something that I would argue that frees you, okay, right? So I would say that the most important thing when it comes to discipline in an artistic field, right, is time management. Okay, time management is such an important skill, and it is a skill, right? It's not something that comes right away, right? But it's something that, like, most people who have, done important things or done things that are difficult, right, have needed to have, right? Because it regulates the day and allows you to know exactly what you're going to be doing, right? So let's say let's visualize this as like a circle, right? And each part of that day, each part of your day, right, is a section of the circle, right? So let's say, like, let's do best case scenario, right? So best case scenario, you're waking up at 7, right? Like maybe you go and work out or you eat breakfast until like from 7 to like 9, right? And then like from 9 till like 12, you could be doing something else, right? Let's say you're like you could use that time for doing work, okay, or what have you, right? And okay, so you set that time from basically 10 to 12, right? Then you get lunch, right? This is basically what I was doing for a while, right? And then from 12, right? Or no, 12. Yeah, so from 12 to like maybe like 1 o'clock, right? That's your lunch, right? And then afterwards, you have time for more work, right? Or for class, right? So depending on where your class is, right? Basically, you want to visualize like a modular system, right? Where it's just chunks of time, right? And how you use those chunks of time is up to you, right? So like each part is like a little modular, right? So like you know what you're gonna do throughout the day, right? And then like maybe nighttime you have more time for work, and then like a little bit of time for free play, right? So all these little modules, right, are there, and you know they're there, right? And you know, like every day, this is my set schedule and modules, right? And I know how much time they're gonna take, right? Or I could just estimate kind of how long it's gonna take, right? And I know when newer events are gonna happen in that timeline, right? So each day could have a different modular depending on like your classes or what you have to do during that day, right? And this will give order and structure to your schedule, right? And what would seemingly be like an kind of like an unknown force, right? Where you're like, well, I gotta do this, and I gotta do that, and I gotta do this, and I have like this, I have to go to class too, and I have like, and I gotta do all this crazy shit, right? That will create chaos, right? That will make you panic and like feel overwhelmed because you're thinking about it all as one giant cloud, right? And you're like, well, how am I gonna get all this done, right? You'll freak out, right? And then maybe in response to that, you'll be like, oh, you'll just put it off, right, and postpone, and then wait till the last minute, right? And then you're like, well, why did I do that? You know, and you regret it, right? So the antidote to that is to create order, right, structure, right? And this is what discipline is, right? You know, discipline isn't necessarily like you know, you have to live your life in like this rigid way, you know what I mean? Like you can only do this, you can only do that. No. Discipline is knowing the structure, right? And let's say like something like, let's say like you have your routine for like whatever day, right? And then something unexpected happens, right? Or like your friend's like, hey, you want to hang out today, right? That's something, or something nice, you know what I mean? So whatever unexpected situation, right? Now you're like, okay, well, I could slot out this chunk, right? This modular, right? For this amount of time, and I could spend that time doing the thing that, like, you know, is unexpected. I can handle it, or I could like hang out with my friend or whatever, right? And then you just slot in the other one, right? But this modular, right? Like this is cutting in to your work time, right? Or maybe you didn't work out or whatever, right? But let's say in terms of for art, right? You want to pay attention, right, to how many of these modulars is it gonna take for you to complete the work that you need to do, right? And sometimes you know, it's gonna require more modulars, right? But you'll notice if you look at throughout your week, right, you're gonna have a lot of extra time, right? Because you've scheduled yourself, because you're more disciplined now, right? You're using your time more efficiently, right? Then you're actually gonna realize that you have way more free time than you think, right? And knowing when and when you don't have free time is really, really important, right? And will give you great relief of stress, right? And so, you know, having that free time is just like a free buffer, you know? You're like, hey, you know, I need more time for my work, so I'm just gonna cut into the free time, you know? It'd be like, well, I just need to use that modular and just use it for work, you know, and getting that done, right? You know, if you're like, you know, and all this applies to anything you're doing throughout the day, right? But what's most important is that you know when you're gonna be working, right? And for how long, right? And you know, I feel like in most cases, people don't like working more than like than like a 3-hour period, right? You know, that's me, that's people I know, right? Working for about 3 hours is good, you know, and you feel like exhausted afterwards, right? So planning the way you plan it, right? Maybe if you're drawing like for long periods of time, right? Maybe you want to put some at the beginning of the day, and then like have like kind of a break period, and then put another one near like more the end of the day, right? You know, so that you pace yourself better, right? And then it doesn't feel so overwhelming, right? It's all about breaking up the pieces of the day and the pieces of the week, right? And then if you do this far enough, you do the whole like month, right? And you can know exactly like, well, how much time is it going to take, right? How much, like, what am I going to do, right? And once you figure all that out, right, you have a beautiful structure, right, to which you can follow. And even if something goes a little bit awry, you could replace it, you could fix it, right? It's not the end of the world, right? And that is so beneficial, right? Not just for art, but for like regular life, right? Because now you're not freaking out about every little thing, right? You just know, like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, right? Oh, I can't do this today. Well, I got to do this instead, right? And it's very, very intuitive, right? And like I said, when you're in art school, right, it's required, right? It's required. Or if you like, some people, they don't learn this, right? But guess what, dude? They're producing the worst work, right? They're not doing the stuff on time. They're not good on task, right? And you know what's funny? They have less free time and they're way more stressed out, right? But the professional, right, knows his time, knows what he's going to do, knows how long it's going to take, right? And gives himself the buffer, right, to allow oneself to complete the objective, right, and on time, right? So that's very important, right? Because in the art world, things go fast, right? And they want things to be done fast, but art is not something that is done quickly, right? It can be, right? But in its best form, it takes more time than you think, right? And that's why discipline is so important, right? Time management is so important, right? And you're like, okay, like, hey, I'm someone who is very undisciplined, right? Most artists are not very disciplined at all, right? How do I get more disciplined, right? Well, I would say, first, obviously you structure out what you do, right? Figure out the structure of what you do every day, right? And then repeat the structure again and again and again, so it's like regular, right? And then once you know that, try to figure out the more optimal solutions to your stuff, right? Well, this could be here, and then I could do work in during this time instead of this time. A tip that I like to offer is that doing work earlier in the morning, right? From, I would say, from 9 to 11 or 12 or whatever, right? That's actually golden time, right? Actually a really good time, because the brain is more alert when after you first wake up, right? And more conducive to doing those things, right? Another very helpful tip is going to the gym, right? The gym requires discipline, right? And I know, hey, I'm a big guy, right? But for years, I'd work out like five days a week, right? With a changing schedule, and it's very that creates the environment to become way more disciplined, because you have now this one thing that you need to do, right? For however many days or whatever, right? And then after that, you start scheduling the rest of your day in accordance to that one thing, right? So you could do that with art too, right? You're like, hey, I want to do from 1 to 3 o'clock, right? All I want to be doing is artwork, right? And I'm gonna do that 5 days a week, right? That's what I do. That's what I with I have my hand problems, right? I have that's another thing. If you have significant injuries or something, right, and you need to limit yourself, right, but you still want to get stuff done, okay, that's where discipline can really, really help you, right? Because now well, I give myself this amount of time, and I only give you myself that amount of time, but I do it every day, right? That's discipline, right? And being willing to follow your own schedule, right? That's also discipline, right? Because and you're the one who holds yourself accountable, right? So I would say that, like, accomplishing an objective will allow you to accomplish the next objective of that day, right? And, you know, like, you could have the weekends for rest or whatever, and you could do, hey, I can fuck off and do whatever I want, right? But, and, you know, because it's nice to have those days, right? But having the schedule, having the discipline, makes those days feel better, right? So you're like, oh, I was disciplined the entire week, and now it's the weekend, and I want to be not disciplined, right? But I would argue that, like, you know, the weekend is also important, but, you know, you could use that for free time, right? And then, like, you're like, no, now I feel good, right? But then it's back to discipline, right? And this will allow you to accomplish your greater goals, right? So, like, something that might take a very, very, very long time to succeed, you could accomplish, right? I would, like, this is my approach to the channel, right? Like, a lot of people are like, hey, who is gonna watch, like, an art book review for, like, you know, 1 to 3 hours, right? And I'm like, well, if I keep producing these videos, if I stay consistent, right? If I keep making it at the same time, you know, people can expect it, right? The following will come, right? And my channel has made huge leaps and bounds, right? And now, you know, I'm monetized, and, like, you know, that's, like, for a lot of people that takes much longer than it did for me, right? With some people it's shorter, right? You know, it's all relative, right? But the task of doing it is something that requires a lot of discipline, right? And a lot of time spent, you know? So because I'm disciplined, because I know the task at hand, right? And I know how much time it's going to take, right? That means I could set aside that time to create the things that I need to, right? And to do it regularly, right? And which gives me the chance to accomplish the greater goal, right? And with that, you can move mountains, okay, right? Like, YouTube is like oh, like, it's all these things, like, all these unknowns, right? But what is known is when you're gonna release a video, right? How long is it gonna take to make, right? You know, and, like, you know, those things change and ebb and flow, right? But because of the discipline, you know you can get it done, right? And that gives you confidence, right? And confidence in art is king. Alright, guys, I think we can end the video here, guys. Please, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like, hit that subscribe. Check out my Princeton Patreon if you want to support the channel. Leave a comment. Tell me how you guys feel about discipline. Are you guys a disciplined artist? Are you not a disciplined artist, but you'd like to, right? Let me know down below. Ring that bell for notification, all that bullshit, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot.